Hey, and welcome to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. My name is Beth Bergen, and I'm a global leadership and communication coach. My focus is on building influential leaders. And what that means is that I help executives and managers and business owners. I help them to build their influence through powerful leadership and communication skills so that they can lead cohesive teams, they can drive the results that they are aiming to achieve, and they and their team can become more visible, potentially in their industry, but also most definitely in their organization. And I am here live most Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is 2 p.m. for those of you who are in Sydney and Melbourne. And sometimes that can be the state that people overseas are aware of. They might know Sydney and Melbourne, they may not know Brisbane. So I talk a lot about leadership intelligence. And what I know about leadership intelligence, and what I certainly hope that I'm promoting to you, is that there are many different aspects to leadership intelligence. There are many layers to it, because leading can sometimes feel like a really big role and a big responsibility. Now, if you think about your team for a moment, think about your team, not their roles, but their real selves. Think about that person who might be juggling the school drop-off. Think about that person who might be just quietly sitting there doubting their own ability. Think about that person who's absolutely bursting with ideas, but they're not quite sure about when to speak up. Leadership is about leading humans. It's about leading every single one of those examples and the people behind those examples I've just given you. Not about managing job titles. And leading humans is all about engagement. It's all about building trust, because what that does is lift the performance. Your team actually follows how you make them feel. Yeah, maybe they will follow your title, but they're going to actually really be engaged, really be performing at their peak if you're making them feel as though they're worthwhile. So I want to actually be looking at how do we manage the human and not the job title. And there are 7 key aspects to that, which we're going to unpack today. So the first one is looking beyond the role. Beyond the role. Each different person has different emotions, they've got a different context around their role, their life at work, their life away from work. They've probably got different motivations. They certainly are going to be bringing a different set of skills with them. And so what this means is that you as the manager need to develop an awareness of these differences, but also, really importantly, the skill set to be able to deal with each of them differently, so that what you're doing is leading and supporting and being there and managing and directing the whole person, and not just the outputs that they're required to do for the job. Yeah, that's the first one. The second thing is the humanity gap in leadership. Now, this is actually a thing. So if you Google the humanity gap in leadership, you'll find out a whole lot more about it than we're going to talk about today. But basically, what this refers to is that when we're under pressure as leaders, we often will default to the old way of doing it, the metrics, the measurements. And what that can mean when we're under pressure. Now, We can be under pressure as human beings. The business might be under pressure because it's not performing. So if the business and the leadership is under pressure, then potentially they're defaulting to this old way of doing things. So if we lack that human connection because we've gone back to the metrics, if we lack those human-centered skills, then this is where that humanity gap in leadership comes from. Those human-centered skills are things like empathy, things like emotional intelligence, and things like leadership intelligence. Now, AI isn't helping with this. AI isn't helping with this because lots of people are thinking, I can't do my job anymore because AI is going to come along and replace it. As a leader, in order to overcome or to build this humanity gap, you need to be thinking about the skills that AI can't easily replicate. And this is things like creativity, the critical thinking, the ethical judgment. Because if you're starting to promote these kinds of things, you're really building that trust. So here what we're looking at is building empathy so that it doesn't become all about efficiencies. It doesn't become, I've gone back to the metrics. Because if what you're doing is focused on efficiency and metrics, then you're likely to be lessening the impact or the potential for innovation, for engagement, and for adaptability to be actually occurring. So as a leader now, you've got to be really smart about building and blending that commercial acumen. We need you to understand the metrics. We need you to understand efficiency, but you must be blending that together with the human skills. Yeah, this is how we manage the humans, not just the jobs. This is how we lead the humans and not just the jobs. Okay, the third thing, the empathy advantage. Now, this is all about understanding as a leader that empathy is not a weakness. Now, empathy doesn't actually mean that you agree with someone. What it means is that you're vulnerable enough to understand the feelings and the experiences that they're vulnerable enough to share with you. You don't have to agree with them. You're simply showing empathy. And once you've got that empathy happening, it's much easier for you then to address common challenges that people might have. Things like burnout, things like complacency, things like mistrust that's happening amongst your team. And so what I suggest here is a simple 3-pillar approach. It's caring, connecting, and communicating. So what do I mean by care? What I'm looking at here is care enough, be vulnerable enough to put yourself in their shoes. Look at their map of the world and see things a little bit from their perspective and what's going on for them. For connect, make sure that you're focused on them. Do active listening. Build that rapport with them so that you remember what's going on. Connection isn't just about hearing, it's actually about that remembering aspect of it so that you can ask someone how their grandmother is now if what they've told you is that she's been unwell. Yeah. The third pillar is communicate. Now remember that we communicate non-verbally, verbally, and by the tone of our voice and how our voice comes through, and also with the words. And what we want you to be doing here is making sure that you are validating the human being. Validate what's going on for them. Demonstrate that empathy. And also that when you are communicating with them, you're providing clarity so that they understand that this is exactly what you've worked out for and with them. Yeah? Okay. Number 4. Number 4 is seeing and hearing people. If we're managing and leading the humans and not the jobs, we have to see and hear them. It's about genuine curiosity, authenticity on your part, and creating that psychological safety that is so often talked about. So that almost comes down to, instead of just asking, how are you? A better question can be, maybe after you've listened to their answer and watched to see and notice what you're noticing about how they're communicating with you and how they're presenting themselves, how are you really? That's a huge question for you to look at, or to use rather, when it comes to you leading the humans and not the job. And again, I'll always come back to this, developing your leadership intelligence so that you are communicating to help people to be the best that they can be at the jobs that they're doing, and to get that harmony between what's going on at home for them and what's going on at work. Okay, number 5. We're looking here now at recognition that resonates. Now, the really weird thing is that whatever you're doing, we've already talked about the fact that, it's not one size fits all when it comes to communicating, because, people are different. So it's the same thing with recognition. Have personalized communication, but understand how each person wants to be recognized. Some people love a great big fuss. They want, at a town hall meeting, they want to be mentioned. They want everybody to know, oh, so-and-so, they achieved this. Others die. Don't you dare do that. Just come and tell me quietly you think I did a great job. Some people want money. Some people want time off. Some people want gifts. Some people just want to be told you did a great job. So what's really important here is that when you're recognizing what people do and it resonates with them, it goes a huge way to building that trust and respect. Okay? 2 to go. Number 6, connect and then correct. As leaders, often as parents as well, and as partners also, we can be really quick to move to noticing what people did wrong and wanting to correct that. It's really important that you develop that strong trust, that you develop that rapport, because the stronger that trust and rapport is, the easier it is to have those difficult conversations. That's a really important point. And it's kind of like, hey, checking in with someone, letting them know that they matter. So that's the important thing, that they matter, and then talking to them about what you might need help with or what needs to change. Those things are really important, that connection, connect all the time, because as I said before, that makes it a whole heap easier for you to have those difficult conversations. Number 7, the final aspect of leading humans, not jobs, is that you actually demonstrate this human leadership in action. It's one thing for me to sit here and talk to you about it, and you can agree, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea, but I love that, Beth. Yeah. The concepts are always really easy to understand. The challenge for you is, how can I be deliberate about including this day after day after day? Because consistency on your part is what will build the culture for everyone else. consistency on your part, those small things, those small check-ins, remembering people's names, celebrating milestones, demonstrating gratitude, acknowledging people. That's human leadership in action. Walking the floor, talking to people. That is a whole heap better than a grand gesture. Okay, everyone, we're going to Melbourne or the Gold Coast for 3 days for a conference. That feels like a great thing to do. But if you're not demonstrating human leadership before you get there, when you get there, there's every likelihood that whatever is rolled out is still going to be focused on leading people's jobs rather than leading the human beings that they are. Yeah? So some reflection here, some things that I'd really like you to think about. And what we've done is we've put these up on the screen for you so that there's an opportunity for you to write them down. The first thing is, when do you catch yourself focusing on results, not relationships? When do you catch yourself focusing on results instead of relationships? It's an important question, because if you're focusing on results, then there's the potential that you're managing, you've defaulted and you're managing the metrics or the efficiency and not the people. So that's the first question, reflection question. The second one is this: how do you recognize people in a way that feels authentic to them? Now, this is kind of like a two-sided question. How do you, meaning, this is a question to answer. Well, how do people do that? How do people recognize other people in a way that feels authentic to them? That's one aspect of it. But if you reflect and you go that little bit deeper, this question is also about how do you recognize people in a way that feels authentic to them? So one is just kind of a more general question. How do you do that? And the second one is, actually, am I doing this? And if I am, how am I doing it? Yeah. The third reflection is this. I want you to imagine for a moment that things are different. What would change if your team felt more human at work? I think all sorts of things would change. Trust, engagement, creativity, innovation, rapport, the culture. You have a think about what would change if your team felt more human at work. Yeah? So just in summary, leadership is human first and it's operational second. Human first and operational second. And the more empathy you can demonstrate, the more likely you are to build trust and performance. And that's perfectly okay. Build that trust and performance. And also that connection builds that credibility. Now, just another reminder, empathizing with someone does not mean that you agree with them. Lots of people say to me, I don't want to empathize with them. They might think I agree. It's putting yourself in their shoes. It doesn't mean you agree with them. Okay? So that final thing, connection builds that credibility all the time. And as a leader, that's something that you should actively be looking to achieve. So thank you so much. If you've got questions and comments, pop them in the platform that you're watching this on, and we will get back to you and respond to those. If you're watching replay, love it if you put #replay. Let's talk about something else for a moment. How many of you may have lost your mojo? you kind of lose your mojo drip by drip, really. You might get so busy being or doing that you lose touch with who you are and where your actual mojo is. And it can be easy to lean back and wait for motivation. But you need practice. You need to be actually doing something. You need that deliberate practice to keep your motivation up, to keep your mojo going. Now, what I have is 365 days of growth. And for less than the price, way less than the price of a coffee each day, you can get an inspirational, a motivational message from me in a short video, less than 1 minute. And it will come out to you every single day. That daily message covers a whole range of different topics. And what we found, the people who've been using it, what they've found is that it's made a huge difference to them just to have that reminder. And what they're amazed about is how often that reminder, that live video for me, is exactly what they needed to hear on that particular day. So we've got this available. You can subscribe to this and you'll get a daily email, 365 days of growth. The link will be in the chat below. So yell out, or you can actually use the QR code that's on the screen here. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you next week. Bye now.